Back to the Glam Hive Live Beauty and Style Summit. I am so excited and incredibly honored to be among the best, the brightest, and of course, the most stylish in style and beauty. This is a conference for stylists and style enthusiasts. First and foremost, of course, we want to remind you to capture and share all of this incredible content on your socials, #GlamHiveLive. Special thanks to our sponsors, Mary Kay Global Designs, for empowering women to live their best lives. Of course, that's the ethos here at Glam Hive. And like their founder, our founder, Steph Sprangers, continues to empower women in business and make it look good. Now for our next panel, how to make it in Hollywood, avoid the worst dress list, and truly take fashion risks. We have incredible panels, including Tiffany Gifford, Sonia Young, and Thrash, moderated by Brian Underwood. Brian?
Much, Jeslyn. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Underwood, the beauty director of Oprah Daily, and I am so excited to be joined by some of the best and brightest in style right now to moderate this incredible panel, How to Make It in Hollywood. So you're all going to tell me how to make it in Hollywood, because as a New Yorker here in LA, I need some tips, big time. So I'll introduce you each. On the end here, we have the sartorial rock star himself, Thrash, who is the design mind behind Thrash Bespoke, which was the choice of Cedric the Entertainer for the 2021 Emmys. Hi, Thrash. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself, bro?
Good. Doing good. Looking amazing as always. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And then we have the incredible Tiffany Gifford, who is a sought-after wardrobe stylist in music and entertainment. Her looks have graced the red carpet on celebrities like Miranda Lambert, to name just a few. Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
Hi. I'm good.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, right here to my right is the incredible Sonia Young, also a much sought-after wardrobe stylist who has worked with the likes of Abigail Breslin and Paris Jackson. Hi, Sonia.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to start with you, Sonia. And this is a question I'll ask to all of you. How did you get your start? I know for you, Sonia, you started first and you were unrepresented by an agent. Now you do have an agent. What was that transition like, and how did that come to be?
Okay. Well, I think starting out with no agent, and also kind of starting out and not necessarily really knowing exactly, I knew I wanted to style. I knew I wanted to do this. So I kind of just made it happen. I don't know. I thought about it. I did it. I didn't assist or anything. So I got really lucky, just really working relationships and like having good relationships with kind of everyone. And I started out unrepresented, and it really creates a unique set of problems. You're doing your own billing. You're doing your own negotiations. You're doing all your work. You're doing everything. And it just gets to be really exhausting. So I've been with my agent for probably like 4 years, and it just really is such a game changer in my opinion. When you're busy, you don't have time to think about the small details, and you do enough running your own business that having that is really just a good person to have in your corner.
And how did that relationship form? What was that sort of transition like?
So that transition was, I had done probably about 2 or 3 carpets with Paris Jackson, and she was getting a lot of press. So then I was having a lot of people reach out wanting to represent me and, wanting to be a part of that whole situation. So my agent reached out, had a meeting with her, and I just knew, like, my heart, I was like, oh, this is my girl, like, for sure. It was. And so we've just been together ever since. So they were reaching out to me, and I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Congrats on all your success.
Thank you.
Tiffany, how about you? Talk to us a little bit about how you got into this crazy, exciting world of wardrobe styling.
Yeah. So I actually went a different route. I moved to New York and went to Parsons School of Design. I knew I wanted to be a stylist. At the time, I thought I wanted to work in editorial. Magazines were at their heyday. I wanted to be, styling the covers of In Style and Lucky Magazine. Rest in peace.
Miss it so. Miss it.
I know. It was one of a kind. But yeah, so I moved to New York, went to school, and then started assisting straight away. worked a little bit in editorial, but then the big pinnacle for me was assistant Andrea Lieberman, which, anybody in the styling world knows, she's the reason Google Images exists. She did the green Versace dress that we all know very well from Miss Jennifer Lopez. And so that was just an incredible, inspiring moment for me. And I was like, okay, this changes the game for me, because I feel like you can be so incredibly creative in the celebrity world where there are a little bit more parameters when you work in editorial, as I'm sure you know.
I do.
You can get that fun little advertiser list that you have to shoot.
For sure, I know it well.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. And then I now live in Nashville. I decided to make the move there. There was no stylist there that had my background. And I really wanted to work in music, which 95% of my clients are musicians. So it was the right move for me.
And I would imagine having such an incredible mentor sort of makes you want to pay it forward as a mentor yourself. Is that how you feel about it?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Not just Andrea, but I had so many people in my corner, former bosses, but even people that would just give me their time. I remember when I was interning at Glamour magazine, and the photo director at the time, Suzanne Donaldson, she agreed to sit down with me and she gave me the greatest advice. She was like, make a copy of what we called the book at the time, which was like how it was basically a yellow pages for anybody creative, photographers, stylists, hair and makeup people, and start doing research. Like, see what stylist you would want to work for, that you might want to emulate their career or like their aesthetic. And I did that. And so, yes, there were so many people that were, really gracious enough to give me their time. And I am a huge proponent of that myself. Anybody that has the passion to do what I get to do for a living, to hustle and put in that extra time, I'm there. I'm here. I'm an open book.
So how to make it in Hollywood's good career karma.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
And word on the street, though, is that Tiffany is a really good mentor, and she's incredible. I've heard it from so many people. So she really is paying it forward.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. I'll pay you later.
Quentin, how about you? I mean, man, you've had an incredible year. You were just featured in a Kohler campaign. I mean, it's rocket to the moon with you. Talk to us about how this all came to be for you.
Yeah, so originally, I started out styling. So I've been in LA almost 10 years now. And I started out as a stylist. I was working with mainly like athletes and actors, comedians, things like that. But as far as design goes, so I was always known for like my personal style. And of course, back then, like I wasn't making good money, so I couldn't afford like the finer things. So I started by doing a lot of thrifting. And that's what I was known for. So I was thrifting these like unique pieces, taking them to the tailor, having alterations made, changing things. And that's kind of how I just kind of started developing my own little kind of niche kind of style. And then, of course, after years goes by and I started kind of working a little bit, I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I need to start making my own stuff from scratch. So I started just designing my own suit. That's all it was at first. And then one day, Sam Adegoke, he's the character on the show Dynasty. I'm not sure if you're familiar. So I ran into him on the street one day, and I had this like solid green double-breasted suit on. And he was like, because he's Nigerian. So he was like, bro, I need that suit. So like on the spot, he FaceTimed Meredith and put me on FaceTime. She was like, Meredith, I need this suit for the show. And like 2 days later, that was my first time actually making a suit for a client. And then things just kind of started snowballing from after that, man.
So how to make it in Hollywood, embody your brand 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're a walking billboard. Yeah. So even when I wasn't really working that well, when people asked me what I did and I told them that I was a stylist or a designer, the first thing they said was like, oh, of course you are. Look at you. You know what I mean? So I was always dressed well. No one knew my financial status at the time because the way I carried myself. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that I always is spread to people is just like, make sure you're a walking billboard and that you always represent yourself well, because no one really knows what it looks like on the back end as long as you can produce on the front end.
Such good advice. Such good advice. It's like the nice way of saying fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
The authentic way.
Yeah, the authentic way. Yeah,
I love it. Tiffany, let's talk a little bit about personal style, your unique style, both on the red carpet and in real life. How do you cultivate a sense of personal style in your opinion?
Are you speaking for myself or for clients?
For clients.
For me, honestly, I work with mostly musicians. It all comes from music. It starts and ends with the music for me. I love taking someone else's artistic medium and turning it into an image. And so it all starts, I hear the music, and to me, it should inform me exactly what their style should be. I'm lucky enough to work with clients that allow me and are vulnerable enough to allow me to listen to music, sometimes even before it's mastered, before the record label has even heard it. And then from there, it kind of informs me what I think, the look should be for that album cycle. I create a board for them, we collaborate. And then, it goes from there, and everything filters from there. So that's performance outfits, that's tour looks. Obviously it's the album packaging shoot. So for me, it's specifically music, but I like the fact I'm just such a musical. I have an inclination for music in general because it inspires me on such a large level. So I think you can translate that to the every person as well. Like, what's your musical style? What's your, what do you gravitate toward? Let that kind of inform what your personal style might be.
Incredible. Sonia, what about you? What your inspiration when it comes to working with your clients? Where does that come from?
I think it just comes from conversations, and I think it comes from really getting to know someone and kind of seeing like what they're comfortable with and what kind of boundaries they're wanting to push within themselves. And I always just tell them, I'm like, if you're feeling confident, that's the best thing you can be wearing. I think confidence shows. And I think when you're wanting to push yourself out of an element, like a lot of like my male clients are like, I would love to wear jewelry, but I just don't know how. Like, it just feels uncomfortable. I was like, well, you put it on and you go outside and you just see what happens. And I think you just see how you feel. You know what I mean? You do it in a safe environment. And I think really trusting yourself and testing out who you want to be with the people closest to you, if that's your glam team, if that's your best friend, if that's your partner, whoever that might be. I think really testing it out in a space where you feel like you can be vulnerable. I love that. And I think it's really just having a conversation. I think it's being really candid and really honest, because we all know how it is when we get dressed. We're like, okay, I bought this for a reason one day. I don't know what version of myself bought this, but I bought it because I love it. And then, 2 years later, you're all of a sudden looking at it with different eyes and you're like, oh shit, I swore. And you're like, oh, that's you're like, oh, that's why I bought it. So it's kind of one of those things, like I'm sure you feel that way with buying your vintage stuff. It all just comes full circle. So I think it's really just implementing who you want to be and really just giving yourself the grace to try out new styles and having an open conversation.
Quentin, you create things from scratch for your clients. And I loved the video on your Instagram working with Cedric for the Emmys look. How do you work with a client? What's that process like for you?
So I agree with her about it all starts with a conversation. So seeing what they've done before, looking at what they've done in the past, what they're already comfortable with, and then there's a reason why they're coming to me compared to someone else. So therefore, they're open to what my creative idea is going to be as well. So even with Cedric's look, literally how that came about is I was trying to develop a new look that I could kind of like put a stamp on, where it's like when you see that, that is a Thrash look. So I've come up with this like color blocking thing that I'm starting to do now. And literally I walked outside of my apartment one day and it was a black and silver Rolls Royce outside. And I was just like, That's when the black and gray came in, because he was like, he wanted to do something not too crazy for that particular look. He was like, I didn't want to go too crazy, but I definitely want to do something a little cool. So I was like, I think I got something. So I sketched it up, sent it over to him, sold first draft, he was sold. And so that's kind of how that came about. But yeah, it all started with a conversation of seeing where he was at and how far he was willing to go and allow me to go with the look.
So it's also about sort of just keeping your eyes open and finding inspiration everywhere, all around you.
Yeah, and being open to those inspirations, because one thing I've noticed with myself is there may be something that I may not technically care for, right? But the fact that my attention is still on it, I never shut it out. It's like, I'll just sit on it for a while and let that kind of, and try to see if I understand later on why that is standing out to me. So I've just kind of matured in that space of just stop. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I do like this. It's like, no, if I'm actually paying it attention, there's something in the back it may be a year later before it actually resonates with why I actually like it. So yeah, I'm very open to those ideas. So when I see something, I'm like, all right, there's something there. So let me sit on it, think on it. And I never rush things. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I take you may see something that I make. I could have came with an idea years ago and it just finally made sense for me to kind of move forward with it.
I love that so much. And Tiffany, you talked about taking inspiration from music. Sonia, I'm wondering, is there like a surprising place that you've ever found inspiration creatively for yourself to create or look, or just in general?
I mean, I think, again, like we've all said, there's inspiration everywhere. And especially when you're working with musicians, it really is also inspired by their deep innermost thoughts that you're, having this secret peek into. So, I mean, it's really inspiring to find inspiration in someone else's, like what drives them. I mean, I think for myself, it's really just everyday, ordinary stuff. I think it's just, as you said, walking out and seeing the Rolls Royce, and you're like, that just makes sense. There's just things that just make sense. And then, having these thoughts and ideas and I just have so much going on up there all the time that it's hard to shut it off. So it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, file that under good, file that under like, oh, let's like visit that later. But I mean, it's everything. You can look at a wheel well and be like, oh yeah, like that rivet on that would look amazing on a suit jacket. So it's one of those things that you just like draw from. And I'm sure we're all the same way. From a young age, you would just see things differently. You know what I mean? You see a flower growing out of the ground and you can see, you're like, oh, I wonder what color that's going to be. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's something that's just been ingrained in me my whole life. And it all started by really laying on the grass and staring at clouds and figuring out what shape they were.
Amazing.
Where the inspo started.
Like that.
Well, I love what you said about it being this sort of innate thing inside yourself. But I'm also curious, as artists and professionals, there is something innately in you, but how do you develop, hone, and perfect that craft? Tiffany, let's start with you. What's that process like, or has it been like for you?
I think honestly, you can film, history. You can really find it anywhere. Instagram.
Just paying attention.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I think for me, I try to stay current on the fashion weeks and attend as much as I can. That I find inspiring. I try to get to New York City as much as I can because it's just like, for me, it's visual. You see inspiration everywhere you look because it's such a pedestrian city. Travel. I mean, it's really endless how you can hone those skills. If it's something, that you don't feel like maybe it's innate, maybe it's not, but perhaps honing those skills, I think any of those things could definitely help with it.
I think you wanted to add something, Sonia. Did you?
I was just going to say, I was just in Capri in Italy, and it's one of those things where...
la-di-da.
No, but it's one of those things where you just see the world so differently from someone else's eyes, and you're just looking at the fashion and the style and the food and the plates and the pottery, and you're just looking at it all, and you're like, wow, there's inspiration to be found literally everywhere you look,
I love it.
So I have this phrase that I go by, which is as simple as I trust my dopeness, right? So therefore, when I'm creating things, even if it doesn't make sense sometimes, or it may be something a little more out of the box. So like I said, we do a lot of research. We see what's been done before. You know what I'm saying? We come up with our own things, but sometimes it may be something a little out of the box, but I know I trust my dopeness in that whatever I do create, even if it's a little out of the box, I'm gonna do it at a very high level. So therefore, it's gonna translate a certain way, no matter how it comes out. As long as it's done properly, it can always there's always something for somebody.
How to make it in Hollywood. Trust your dopeness.
I
love it.
Trust your dopeness.
I'm gonna take
want
that
a t-shirt that says trust your
let's do it.
dopeness. Yeah.
Thrash Bespoke. You need to make those. Speaking of trusting yourself, and this, I think the industry has changed so much. So maybe this isn't as much of a concern anymore, but let's talk about the dreaded worst dressed list. Is that still a thing? Do you still think about that? Is that still part of your process?
I have to be honest. When I first started styling, I thought I was confident and I had confidence in my abilities, but I was like masochistic, where I would literally search after I had done a red carpet. I would go on and say the client I dressed and click worst dressed and put it in the Google. I'm not kidding. And because I'm like, I want to see. Obviously, everything is relative, but that's ridiculous. I mean, I was trying to find negative stuff. Honestly, now I'm at a place in my career, and I think sometimes it does. I would say it takes time, but now I'm in a place in my career. As long as my client feels great and we loved what we did and I believe in what we did, there's always going to be somebody out there, some hater, some troll that's going to be like, because also what we do is relative. Anything you do creative, I always say it's like you're opening yourself from the inside out for people to see your deepest insides and say like me or don't, or, and ultimately there's going to be somebody out there who doesn't, but also who cares?
I see nods from both Sonia and Quentin.
I mean, I think that the whole worst dress thing, I think when I first started, it was it also, was a totally different time. I feel like a worst dress list, like that was just as much advertised as the best dress list, and everyone was commenting on it. And I do think, I don't know if you guys agree, some of the most fabulous looks I think I've ever put together, like on someone, I'm like, this is like a fine line. It's really one of the things where either people are really gonna like see it and feel it, or they're really not, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's like you're walking that fine line when you're doing like a really bold look, like it's either best or worse. Like there's no in between. There's no mediocre about this. Like this is like either really good or this is like
total. But those are the things that move your client's needle forward.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You have to take those risks. I mean, there's been clients that not even of mine that I've watched of other people that have been like, this is a moment. It's either going to go, it'll go one way or the other. It has to, there has to be, those big moments are always going to have, that dichotomy of people that love it and hate it. But those are the moments that move the
Aren't they
needle.
the most exciting?
Oh, they really are. They really are. Yeah.
Well, I love that. And it's the idea though that you're creating these moments. It must be so much pressure too. How do you deal with that pressure of saying every time my client steps out in something that I've put together for them, we want to create something, we want to start a conversation. How do you deal with that pressure? Quentin, Thrash.
So I come from an athletic background. So my entire life has been under a microscope of being judged about my performance with everything. So that's something that I honestly deal with very well. Don't really have, I deal with it very well. Like I could care less what people believe. Like I understand the process of like being a creative and that everything isn't for everybody. So I never let those type of things kind of like get up under my skin just because like I've been dealing with it my entire life since I was a child, aside from the fashion stuff. Yeah.
Tiffany or Sonia, do you have any thoughts about this?
I mean, I think if this career and this whole world doesn't set your heart and body on fire, it's not the career or the lifestyle for you, because it is high energy, it's fast paced. And if you can't handle that, and if you really are so worried about what other people are thinking, then you're in the wrong space. Because I mean, there's so many times, like if I'll get like troll comments on like my Instagram from like these people, and I like go look at it and I'm like, you had nothing better to do than sit there and comment on someone else giving their most and giving their creative process to you, that you're going to sit there and just write something nasty. So I think if it's not your whole heart and soul, then it's not the place for you.
It's so true. Let's talk a little bit about signature style, because I find this to be an interesting conversation for us to have. What is the line between having a signature style and finding inspiration in a client's new work and creating something new for them? Is signature style still a thing? Tiffany?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is an element of a signature style. I mean, for me, I definitely feel like there are stylists out there that tend to put their own style on other people. And I think there's a place for that. I think there's a need for that. For me personally, I love it to feel like my client to feel like the best versions of themselves, and the most best representation of whatever they're trying to do. If it's an album that they're trying to promote or the music that they've just made. I will say that when I first started styling, I have the mindset that, well, I mean, I can do anything. Like I can do any style. Like I am great at, I can do high polish and I can do vintage finds, kind of thing. I've learned that's not exactly true. I know what I really love. I love polish. I love high glam. I love a diva moment. I love all of that. It's where I feel like it's my sweet spot, And so I think that that's where I've kind of honed that and have embraced that more, that like, hey, no, I know that that's what I do really well. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you call that a signature style.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, Thrash, you're somebody who clearly has a signature personal style. How does that factor into what you do professionally?
So coming from the designing space, I understand it from the styling space, but from the design space, I have a certain brand integrity.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
right.
So therefore, there's certain things I want to do. It kind of like may come to me like, oh, Thrash, I want to do this. It's like, that's not really on brand for what I do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's one thing I did. So I think for me, it's a little different because the Thrash bespoke look is a very specific look. I mean, I still have like certain parameters because as you stated earlier, I call myself the sartorial rock star. So it's like, yes, I wear custom bespoke suiting, but also you may catch me like last night at the event, I had on a pussy bow shirt with a biker jacket. You know what I mean? So
worked it just as well as you're working this.
And it all fits into that same brand identity of Thrash bespoke.
I have to say, sorry, that's so brave. I mean, it really is. I have to say, I mean, I think that it's incredibly brave to say, because a lot of stylists and designers who start out, they would be afraid, and I can speak for myself when I was starting out, like I think I was a little afraid to be like, no, that's not my jam. But that's incredibly brave to just say, to be able to turn people away and say, that's just actually not what I do.
Yeah, it definitely took time to get there though. Cause of course, when I was younger and getting more established, I'm doing whatever I can to say I dressed this person or just to say I did this or whatever. So it definitely took time to get to that point though.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like Tiffany and Thrash, said some really interesting things. What has your evolution been like, Sonia, in that space? Have you kind of figured out where your creativity wants to lie?
My creativity lies, I think, with the client. I think it's one of those things. I love a challenge. I love different body types. I do male and female. So it's one of those things that I have, again, like such a busy brain that being able to skip around and doing petite, doing plus size, doing men's, doing women's, it's one of those muscles in your brain that like never gets tired. Cause I had an office job before styling and it was one of those things. I remember looking out the windows and I was like, damn, I feel like a caged bird. And it's when you're just using your brain in one track, it doesn't really work for me. So I think having multiple different vignettes per se in my head of what work should look like, I think that's kind of more my speed.
Incredible.
Personal style.
So let's talk about some nuts and bolts of making it in Hollywood, which I think is networking. And I think networking is tough for some people. I think for some people, they maybe are a little shy personally, or maybe they're not great about, selling themselves or talking themselves up. Sonia, as somebody who started without an agent, that was really part of how you built a career, right? In networking and selling yourself. What was that like?
So I think networking and selling yourself, it's something, if you're confident and you're passionate, there's no ceiling that you can't shatter through. I think that knowing that you're good at what you do and knowing that you have this skill set to do it. And I think also putting in the hard work. I mean, I think the first couple of years that I was styling, I didn't necessarily really know what I was doing. I mean, that was hours on the internet of just trying to figure it out, talking to people, talking to different showrooms, talking to different brands, and trying to figure out how I could better myself and how I could be the best stylist I could be, because it's like, I didn't want to take the time to, not be the best. So I think it was just all hours, all hands on deck. And I think it really is just so important. I think you get much further with a smile and being sweet and understanding. Because, at the end of the day, what we do is you have to be understanding. Like, there's so many variables that aren't up to us. It's like we're such a small piece of the puzzle. If you're lovely and kind and you're good to people and you're good to their samples and you're good to shipping timelines, and of course things happen, but if you're good, you're good,
Tiffany, from your perspective, as somebody who came to Nashville where maybe, as you were saying, there wasn't a lot there to start with, how did you use networking and use promotion to kind of build what you've been able to build?
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your kind of initial question too is like, this may be kind of harsh, but get over it. Like if you have to hustle. Like it just is what it is. I mean, I don't think I was, at the very beginning, I was not necessarily comfortable with like approaching someone that I'd never met and saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what, I'd like to do kind of thing. But that's what got me my very first opportunity. You have to just get over it.
Putting yourself out there.
Yeah. And I would say too, I did network quite a bit when I was in New York, and that really informed when I moved to Nashville, the way it kind of was there. The very first opportunity I got, I introduced myself to Shania Twain's old business manager at my best friend's wedding in New York. And I had no idea she was going to be there. She was friends with my best friend's parents, and I went up to her, gave her my business card, and she introduced me to Jason Owen, who gave me my very first job in Nashville. It's the reason I worked with Shania Twain, because he, managed her for many years. But I parlayed that meeting. I flew myself to Nashville, and I parlayed that meeting into meeting every head of creative at every record label while I was there. So you have to think, you have to be business minded.
Right. I was just going to say it's creative, but you also have to have that business hat on.
You absolutely have to. And yeah, I kind of feel like if you're kind of like Sonia was saying, if you're super passionate about what you're doing, you're not going to be able to keep it inside.
Right.
It's going to come naturally. Like you're going to have to say, hey, this is me and this is what I mean, yeah, I just think
that's
you have to.
That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Thrash, you're building a business. How does networking factor into your business and what you're doing?
So I have a weird way of networking because I'm honestly, contrary to beliefs, I'm kind of introverted in a sense. So I have this element of curiosity. Because I may walk in a room, I really, I make a presence. I'm 6'4", I probably have on some wild patterned suit or whatever, but I'm not like the center of attention. Like I've never really wanted to be that guy because I've always received a lot of attention just naturally. So that's kind of how things have always worked for me, is like the way that I dress, my stature. When I walk in a room, people are just always curious, like, who is this guy? Like, is he an athlete? Is he into fashion? Is he into art? Is he a rapper? Like people are always confused with who I am. So a lot of people tend to draw to me that way. And of course, I just have a lot of relationships with people now. So it's like, oh, my friend Thrash is here, you should meet him, or you should come meet, So that's how a lot of my stuff actually works, which I feel like is a little unorthodox. But yeah, that's the reality of being a 6'4" guy in a plaid suit every day. Yeah.
No, I love what you said about curiosity, because I've always found the best way to get people talking and networking is to ask them about themselves, ask them questions, right?
Well, yeah. So on that side of it, as well as it's kind of like I may enter an event, I may not really speak to too many people, but after the event, people want to know, who was that guy? Like, who was that guy? I seen his car outside. He's super cool, but I didn't really see him, talking to too many people. And then when I looked up, he was gone. So it's like this kind of weird kind of curiosity thing that I kind of like, that I've developed. I didn't do it on purpose. I just realized, people, they come looking for me after I leave.
But again, it goes back to sort of embodying your brand, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of it?
Yeah.
Social media, it has really changed, I think, so much of what we do in style and beauty. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how budding artists can really use social media to build a career, promote their clients, give where credit is due. What's your take on that, Sonia? Any thoughts there?
Well, my thoughts are social media is really hard. So it's really hard. I'm not the best at it, but I think it's one of those things that, when we were, I'm sure, all starting out, social media wasn't a critical piece of the puzzle at the moment. Now I think it's way more important, and we're lucky that, I'm lucky I'm established, so I can kind of slack off in the sense, but I'm always getting in trouble for slacking off on social media. However, it is the most important tool. It's your billboard. It's what everyone sees you as. It's what you're branded as. It's everything. And unfortunately, you just do have to take the time to do it. And I think it's staying really current because it's, I notice if I post a lot of my clients and then I post myself and then I post like a good mix, I get way more of a response when I post a mix because people do want to know like what you're doing and then what your client's doing. And it's keeping this like really, it's hard. It's just all I have to say is hard, but it's super important.
Is it hard for you, Tiffany?
Oh, I hate it. I loathe it. It's a blessing and a curse. I mean, I think it's something that I feel like I have to do because, as Sonia said, it's our portfolio. I mean, I do remember the days where a portfolio was actually a big old book that you had to like send around to people.
Schlep around everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
messenger to people. Gone are the days, which I guess is again a blessing and a curse. But yeah, I have to put it in, and it needs to be a mix. It definitely needs to be a mix of yourself, especially like if you're just starting out and you don't have clientele and you're trying to build a clientele. It's key to, be doing that as much as possible and showing who you are and showing your personality, because personality is a huge part of what we do. I mean, I like to say 75% of what I do is psychology. It's not, you know what it means? 25% clothes. I have my bachelor's degree is in elementary education. And now I work with famous people. So, there's a lot of things that are similar and helpful in that world. Just being intuitive and, trying to, you through your intuition, you understand like where their insecurities might lie and all of those things, their weaknesses, their strengths, all of that stuff. I don't know how I got off on the tangent, but
it was
social media.
Yeah, it's so true. And it really has been transformative. And for a budding entrepreneur, somebody who's starting a brand, it's essential for you, right, Quentin?
Yeah, I battle with it as we all do, especially with my
You seem to do it so well, though.
Yeah, you're very good.
I'm faking the funk. I'm faking the funk.
That's another t-shirt.
Faking the funk. I love it.
I'm faking the funk, man. Because if you actually pay attention to my social media, there's large gaps between my posts.
Thank God.
You know what I mean? Like there's large gaps between my posts. I just try to make sure when I do post, it's really high quality and good content that I know people want to see. So like my engagement is pretty high on those things. But yeah, I definitely 89% of the things that I do never see the light of day. And my team's like, no, Thrash, they want to see you. They want to see the behind the scenes. They want to see the fabrics you're choosing in the moment. They want to see these types of things. And I'm like, I ain't got time to be having my phone up all day trying to record everything that I'm doing. Yeah. But I mean, it's definitely a part of the business. It's a huge part of the business. And it's just something that I feel like we're all just going to have to suck it up and get used to it because it's not going to go away.
I hire someone.
Well, yeah, I hire somebody to do it for me because I hate it. I loathe it and I would never get done. Cause like you said, I mean, like when do you have the time? Like I'd like the content. I have my assistant take as much content and we do a big content dump at the end of the month. And then we work with the team that I've hired to,
How to make it in Hollywood, outsource.
Exactly.
Hire social media.
Yes.
This went by so fast. We were talking about how we were going to talk for 45 minutes. Well, we just did.
We did it.
This went by so fast. Thank you all so much for joining this discussion. One more question before we have to wrap, and it's to each of you. For someone who's starting out, what is your best advice for how to make it in Hollywood? Start with you, Sonia.
Wow. I think the best advice, be confident, be kind, and always present yourself as you want others to see you.
It all goes back to that, embody your brand, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Can I steal that?
Thanks, take it.
Ditto
on that. I just based on my own experience, assist was a huge part for my story. I know it wasn't for everybody's journey, and there is no one way to do what we do for sure. But it just gives you so much in your toolbox. Just even not having the full responsibility, walking into a fitting, not having the full responsibility on you, and seeing how things play out, seeing how
observing
how people run their business. How do you want to do this? How don't you want to do this? You know what I mean? How to handle, when things go sideways, because ultimately they will. You know what I mean?
It's such good advice. It takes so much of the pressure off, and you can kind of, envision what you'll do and how you'll do things differently or the same.
So true. And then the kindness component for me, I think is so key in what we do, because there's so many variables you just have no idea about, and people remember kindness. They really, really do. It's not about you. It's nothing personal. Sometimes people can tend to take things personally. We loan to you or whatever it is, and it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. So just move on, be kind, gracious, and move on.
And so competitive that ultimately you want to work with people who you have fun with, right? I would imagine that's a huge part of it. And Thrash, let's finish with you. How to make it in Hollywood.
How to make it in Hollywood.
Best tip.
I would say the best tip that I have is to be consistent. I know a lot of people out here, they come and they don't get the success that they want immediately. So they start bouncing around to all these different things, just trying to find something to latch onto. And you don't realize like that can kind of put a dip on you in the future when you are coming across these potential. So let's say you have a potential client 1 year, it doesn't work out. It may be 2 or 3 years down the line when it actually comes to fruition. And those people remember that. It was like, last time I talked to you, you were doing this, but now you're doing this and you was doing that. But when they see that you're consistent and you wouldn't take no for an answer, that's when I felt like people really,
that's commitment.
They respect you as, the creative or the artist that you are.
Don't fake the funk. Just stick to it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
What a great chat. And thank you all so much for tuning in. We're gonna have a little break and then we will be back with our next panel, Perfect Pairing, Hair and Makeup. Thank you all so much for tuning in.